Hello, my fellow motivators. This week we are, in this month, we are all in the month of defining. And this week we're going to focus on defining who we are ourselves. Uh, you know, I'm a different breed. I'm a different person. And I know that about myself. It took me a long time to like who I am because I'm unique. I'm obviously different. There's been times in my life that I reflect back on, and I think, there's this one supervisor that I had who called me into his office to tell me that I make him uncomfortable because of my mannerisms and my high-pitched voice, and he didn't want to be around me anymore. And so I thought I had to change who I was to be around this guy. So my voice got a little deeper and, kind of tried to control my mannerisms a little bit more. There's the people after keynotes, they love to tell me things like, you need to be more manly. I've gotten that comment a lot. High school was a totally different story. You learn a lot about yourself in high school. But what I realized is I was trying to change myself for these people, and I was never really happy. And when I realized who I was and I started acting like who I was and I knew who I was a lot happier. I learned that external pressure can lead to internal combustion, right? Yet sometimes we do is we live other people's lives thinking about who we should be. And one of the questions that I want to answer today, one of the questions I want us to think about is, who am I? Like, answering this question is a really important question, especially coming up on this new year. Who am I? And there's two types of things that I've realized of understanding what I've searched for. And there's two types of it. And, I love reading the Dalai Lama. I love reading books, but there's two types of things that ultimately we are in search for. All of us are wanting to be happy. All of us want to be happy, and happy is defined differently for all of us. But what I found and what I used to do, instead of trying to be happy, I was trying to search for pleasure, in the sense of eating good food and experiencing things. And what happens is, with pleasure, that's based off of an external sense. So your external senses. And when external senses get taken away, your pleasure gets taken away, and therefore you might not know who you are. However, what happiness is an internal sense. It's knowing who you are and being good with who you are. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I want to share too, like, why should we even ask this question? Why should we even find the answer to this question? Why should we even define who we are? Well, what I have found, I have no research on this except for my personal experience. Knowing who I am has made me happier, has made me healthier, both mentally and physically, and it's made me more helpful to people because I know what lane I'm in. I know what I should be doing. And all those times that I tried to be somebody that I thought I should be based off of the person who told me something, I was never those things. So I want to be happier and healthier and helpful. And here's why. Here's the thing about defining who we are, answering this question. We find out who we are by experiencing things and questioning things. And both of those things. I know there's three types of people. There are people who are trying to find who they are by experiencing things, but they don't question anything. They just jump in and they experience and they never find out who they are. I know people too who question things all the time. They're questioning and questioning, but they're not doing. And we can't find out who we are if we don't do both of those. We have to experience and we have to question. So many of you know I love to contrast things from A to V to all the different types of things. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to give you 6 questions that I use to help define who I am, to understand who I am, and for you to reflect on these next few weeks of helping all of us define what it is that we should do to know who we are. So we'll go through the who, what, when, where, how, and why. All right. First question, who? Who do I want to be around more? And who do I want to be around less? Okay, this gives us direction and understanding of who are we? Do we want to be around people who are noisy or quiet? Do we want to be around people who are energetic? Do we want to be around people where we're teaching them or they're teaching us? What type of people do we want to be around more and less? Second question, what fills me with energy and what takes my energy? Answering this question and then reflecting back on where are you spending your time and what are you doing to take this energy and fill your energy? And should you be going in a different direction will help ultimately define who we are. Third question, when am I at my best and when am I at my worst? Some people are at their best when they have pressure. Some people are at their best when they don't have pressure. Some people are at their best when they're stressed, and some people are at their best when they're not stressed. But there's this thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately, because the next question that I want to ask is where? Where do I find inspiration? Where do I find inspiration? And this one's so important because for so long, I felt like I had to find inspiration in the ways that people taught how you should find inspiration. You know, you should read a lot of books. Well, I always felt like, well, I don't really like reading that much. I like reading some things, but I've always been a video guy. I've always liked to watch videos. I've always liked to watch movies. I don't know where y'all are. Are you a book reader or are you a video person? Where are we on the motivators? Do you like to read more or do you like to watch movies more? I'd love to know where we are. But there's this theme of when we're defining who we are, you can't live the life with I should do. I should. If we're focusing on, well, I should think this way. I should do this. I should be more like this. No more should. No more should, okay? What is it that ultimately motivates you and where do you find inspiration? I find some inspiration from reading, but I find a lot of inspiration from videos, okay? When am I at some people are at their best when they're not stressed. I'm at my best when I have pressure. That's how it works for me. Well, how is it for you? The how. How do I feel motivated? Knowing how you feel motivated is a very important aspect of who we are and what we do. How do I feel motivated? Knowing that so you know how to bring that in to define yourself. And this is the question. The question that we contemplate, that I contemplate, that I think about is, why do I exist? Asking yourself this question, why do I exist? And I have found the answer. And the answer is, I'm just kidding. I hope I didn't freak out Emily. I kind of wanted to do a little thing to make people be like, what? No, I still am answering this question. My belief currently is I exist to add value. I exist to add value to the world, and that's why I exist. Other people have these different beliefs, but to know why you exist is an important aspect of helping you define who you are. So my challenge for us, all of us this week, myself included, can we spend some time going through these 6 questions and questioning that, and then seeing where we should be experiencing more things to allow us to define who we are. Let me tell you something. You know, if you take nothing else away from me today, this is the one that I want you to take away from me. Don't confuse something you've done with something that you are. Don't confuse something that you've done with something that you are. I coach a lot of people. I interact with a lot of people, myself included. Because you made a bad mistake with your child doesn't make you a bad parent. That made you, maybe you took a bad action, you had a bad reaction. That doesn't make you that thing though. Okay, because you were mean to someone doesn't mean you're a mean person. I've been mean before, that doesn't mean I'm a mean person. I was just mean, and sometimes I do that. And it's the opposite. Because you like cooking this week doesn't mean you're a cook. It simply might mean you like to cook that week. Don't confuse something you have done with something you are. And with that, who we were doesn't have to be who we are. These are choices. We define who we are. We do that, not somebody else. Someone else doesn't tell us and give us our labels. We give ourselves our labels. So who we were doesn't have to be who we are. And I know this because of the people that I've interacted with, because of myself personally. I mean, I have sat down with people who, this sounds intense, but I have sat down in jails with people who have murdered people. I have sat with people who were born a man and now identify as a woman. I have myself, I come from Texas. I was a crazy meat eater and now I'm a vegetarian. But just because I was that thing, just because we did that thing, doesn't mean that's who we have to be or what we have to do. Who we were doesn't have to be who we are. And I've said this before, and I'll share it again because it ties well into this concept of finding who we are. I really like Ryan Holiday's message. Most of us, when we're thinking about the new year and thinking about January and what our goals are for next year and what we want to do, is that's the question we ask ourselves. What do we want to do, right? What do we want to do? I want to do this. I want to accomplish this. They said that's the wrong question we should be asking. The question we should be asking ourselves is, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be? And when we ask ourselves, who do we want to be? It ultimately shows us what we should be doing in order to be that. But no one else can give us that answer except for you. So my question for you is not, what do you want to do in 2022? It's, who do you want to be in 2022? Who do you want to be? Define that. You get to choose that. We get to all choose that. Who do you want to be? And I've said this before, and I will say this again as well. And I know some people like this and some people don't, and some people challenge me on it, and I'm okay with it because I know who I am. But it's this concept of understanding the difference between passion versus purpose. Okay? And I want you to get away from this feeling of passion. Passion, by definition, means the reason or barely uncontrollable emotion. Emotion, it goes back to pleasure, right? When we're searching for pleasure and we're focused on external senses, those are going to evaporate, those are going to change, and then we're always going to feel like we're chasing something. However, purpose by definition means the reason for which it is done. The reason for which it is done. And it's one of my strongest beliefs that people are craving purpose right now. We want to know what our purpose is. We want to know what the purpose is of what we do and who we are and what we should be. And my purpose right now is to add value. It might change, but that's my purpose right now. What's your purpose? Let yourself identify that and know that. There are a few things that I've been hearing lately these past few weeks that I want to talk about, because there are sayings that take us away from being us. And I really dislike them. They're bad for everything. The first one, I heard this and I hadn't heard it in a while, but it's the concept, and this is such a Western concept. If you rest, you rust. What a horrible saying. And why that's such a horrible saying is, no. If you rest, you recharge, and we need to be recharged right now. How many of us are fatigued? How many of us are like, oh, rest is not something you earn. Rest is something that we all need. And why I say that is, when we rest, we have time to question, and we have time to think, and we have time to define who we are. So if you're in this concept of feeling like you can't rest because you'll rest, that's not true. I rest all the time. Maybe I rest a little too much right now, but I rest a lot. But I'm not resting. In fact, I'm better than I've ever been because I'm reflecting and I'm experiencing. I got to take my daughter ice skating for the first time in a long time for the holidays. And someone told her while she was learning, skated by her and said, "Hey, practice makes perfect." And I hate this saying too, because practice does not make perfect. Practice makes you ready. And why I share this one is because if we're constantly feeling like we have to practice to be perfect, well, that's not going to help us understand who we are, because we're going to be afraid to experience things. But I practice so I'm ready for what it is that I want to do or what it is that I need to do. So it's not practice makes you perfect, it's practice makes you ready. And I hope you're ready to define who you are. I hope you're ready to ask yourself, who am I? I want you to be happier and healthier and helpful. And I want those things for you. I want you to ask those questions. I want you to think about and be okay with, here's the thing. We're allowed to change. We are allowed to do that. You don't have to stick to a belief that you had of yourself. So don't confuse something you've done with something that you are. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to think differently. Who we were doesn't have to be who we are. So the Tuesday takeaway is define who you are this week. Define who you are, know who you are. And I'm here to remind you, don't live a life, live the life. I'll talk to you all next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Ryan. And yes, we will be here next week. The next 2 weeks are holiday weeks, but we will be with you on Tuesday. We understand if you have commitments, we can watch them on demand, but for those who can join us, we'd look forward to it. Yeah. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Bye, y'all.